thank you for that comment in the chat. The Chronicle of Higher Ed and Chronicle Vitae also have several free articles on these types of interview scenarios. Yes, and like with everything, I recommend that you go to Google and or library databases if you have access to them, to look for additional advice. Ooh, I'm seeing some really good takeaways here. It's very exciting. So it's true, you're not alone. Somebody said, I'm not the only one struggling to get the job I want to get. That I say this with the utmost humility, that I am very, very surprised and happy to be in the job that I am now. There have been times when I thought I'd never get back into academic libraries. So, so if I can do it, you can too. More confidence and positivity in the job search. Thank you. You're welcome. Yes, confidence and positivity. Yes, you should be applying for academic library jobs differently from other types of jobs. Yes, taking notes on a job description, be intentional about tailoring your document. Yes, it is okay to have over one-page resume and cover letter. Oh, good. I'm glad you found the spreadsheet helpful. Others are saying in the chat, Kim said, I was on the right track, but this webinar gave me more direction. Good, I'm glad. Oh, a question. So Amal asked, so we spoke a bit about finding gaps between our experience and the job description. Is there an instance when we should table an application? Yes, I think that you should table an application if you really, like, if there's a gap that is essential to the job, that you can't find a parallel in your experience, and that you are scared you would fail doing that job if you actually got the job. If you're confident you can do that job, spin your experience and show that you could do that job. And this goes back to what I said early on in this workshop, that I think librarians in general have a tendency that if we can't say, I have done that thing in exactly the way they are asking for, we disqualify ourselves before anyone else disqualifies us. So certainly you don't want to burn a bridge and send in a job that you are wildly unqualified for. Never, ever do that. But if you are confident that you can do that job and you have done enough of the things in the job and know how you would do the other things and have experience that you can draw on to make that happen, then I would say go for it. But if you don't, if you doubt that you could do the job, you should absolutely table the application. So Elise has put into the chat to give feedback about today's session. I will advance to the slide also where you can do that, but I also want to let you know this slide has 2 of the 3 recommended readings that I have in a doc in the folder that I've shared with you already. So these are two really useful articles. One is an editorial from In the Library with the Lead Pipe. I love that journal. It's What Not to Do When Applying for Library Jobs. Very helpful. It's from the editorial team. And then the other one is Identifying and Conveying Transferable Skills by Julie Todaro. So those are both very helpful and good for anyone applying for jobs, but especially for those of you who are need to spin past experience to show how it can, how it makes you prepared to do the work for the job you're applying for. That Julie Todaro article is going to be really useful. And oh, Lou, hi Lou, excellent workshop, Shannon. Thank you. I'm so glad that you liked it, and thank you for sharing the recording. Yes, please do share the recording. So there's a QR code here so that you can use that with your reader, or go to the bit.ly link and give us feedback about today's session. The link is also in the chat that Elise put in there, so thank you, Elise, for that. The next First Friday workshop is going to be on April 3rd at 10 a.m. Pacific time. And then I'll give you another second with this slide before I go to the next one. The LLAMA New Professional LIS Outreach First Friday webinar archive, another QR code, and the YouTube channel link, which Elise also put in the chat. We are at 11:20, which means technically we have 10 minutes left. So I'm happy to take any additional questions that you may have. What are the differences between a cover letter and a personal statement? So in most of the, and I'm sorry for those of you who are not going for academic librarian jobs, because that's the bulk of my experience. That's the perspective that I'm speaking from mostly. But sometimes in recent academic library job searches, many of them actually, I've seen that they're asking for a cover letter and also a diversity statement or some statement about how you are contributing to promoting diversity, how you would or could or have promoted diversity. That's not the same thing as a personal statement, but that is another supplementary document that you may be asked to write for at least an academic job, application. But I would say cover letter and personal statement, I would use those kind of interchangeably in most cases. I just use the word cover letter because that's what I'm used to saying. But you may be asked to give a personal statement that does a lot of the same things that a quote unquote cover letter would. But you may also be asked to give supplementary statements, and the instructions for those will be in the job ad, the job description. Any advice on transitioning from public librarianship to academic librarianship? I think that if you can start doing something in the academic library world or participating in academic library conferences or doing some sort of research that would benefit the academic library community to show your great interest, I think those are some good ways to start to make that transition happen. Another, these jobs for people who are, some of these transitional kind of jobs like library assistant jobs, those things might not be the way for you because you may have enough experience in the public library world that wouldn't make as much sense. So maybe going in on that research angle might be a way to show your academic chops. There's a question about styles that I need to scroll back to. Let's see. How much does layout matter? For example, some people use graphic designers to make resume and some people use Word docs. Does aesthetic matter? In many of the job application programs that institutions are using these days, it strips formatting out. So if you're being asked to copy and paste your resume or even sometimes upload a PDF into a system, sometimes it strips out all your formatting anyway. My advice is to make it as clean and machine readable as possible while also looking aesthetically pleasing if somebody were to print it out. So you kind of have to toe a line on that. I also recently saw somebody put their picture on their resume, and with LinkedIn, never put your picture on a resume was always the advice for years, decades. Now that we can Google each other and see our pictures on the web or Facebook or LinkedIn, I think that there's less of a strict rule about that, but it still turns a lot of people off. So even if there isn't a hard and fast rule about that anymore, it's definitely something that would turn people off. And I have seen people on search committees want to throw out applications simply because they had a picture on them. Elle asks, how important is an online portfolio? These days, whenever I am personally serving on a search committee, I do like to see what they have on LinkedIn, if they have a LinkedIn presence. And that isn't necessarily an online portfolio, but that is an online presence. If a job is asking for an online portfolio, then definitely make one. If you have supplementary materials like, I don't know, lesson plans or presentations that you could put all in one place, I mean, that would be wonderful and above and beyond. So that is something that might be able to set you apart in a very packed field. But don't assume people are actually going to look at it. You want your application to be strong on its own without those kinds of supplementary materials. But if should people want to look at additional presentations or whatever it might be on a portfolio, then having it there for them is a nice bonus. So I would say don't put all your energy into that, but it might help in a very tight job market. Fiora is asking, most library or archives positions that I see listed ask for at least 2 to 3 years of experience, not true entry-level positions. I have a couple internships under my belt and several years of experience in other fields, but not libraries. Never sure what to do about that. So that is where I would say spin that experience. Absolutely tie the experience you do have to the things that that job wants you to do. The reference associate job that I got while I was finishing my library degree, that I think that the job ad said that they wanted somebody with a master's in a subject, but not the library degree. And I called the reference desk and I asked what that meant because I was confused by it. And really it was that they wanted somebody who perhaps wanted to become a librarian, but that didn't have the degree yet, that it was a good kind of entry-level job to gain experience, but they didn't want somebody who already had the library degree. And I was over a year out from having my degree. And so I applied, and because of the experience that I had at University at Buffalo, I got the job, and that continued to set me up for the rest of my career. So I applied for that job even though I didn't have the qualification exactly that they asked for, but I spun what I had in order to show that I could do what they needed. So I hope that answers your question. And let's see, that could have been someone from a foreign country. Okay, so in Europe, it may be common practice to put a photo on a resume. That is not the case in the United States. So, so if you are applying for jobs in Europe and that's customary, then go ahead and put a photo on your resume. But if you're applying for any jobs that you're applying for in the US, I would recommend that you do not do that. So thanks again. This has been a wonderfully interactive workshop. Thank you so much for your time and your attention. And I'm so glad that it was helpful. I wish you all the best of luck on your job search. And please do reach out to me if you have any additional questions.